Every single day, as entrepreneurs get more into the branding process, they find out certain elements in their brand don't align with their purpose, vision, mission, and other parts of their core. When this happens, it may be time to rebrand. But how do you know when it's time? Today, we're talking all about it. I'm PG Williams, copywriter and brand builder turned business owner of multiple entities. While corporate America is in my past, I've parlayed those skills into the future, focusing on growing my businesses, learning valuable lessons, and helping others do it too. What started as an idea to capitalize off my skills has helped so many to create a strong brand with actionable steps, copy, and content that matters. I created the Talk Like a Brand podcast to give you relatable, simple strategies and advice that makes you think, reflect, and implement. If you're an entrepreneur or one in the making who wants to build a strong brand with a solid foundation, you're in the right place. So let's get into it. There are a ton of reasons why companies rebrand. Companies that have been around for years have different reasons for rebranding than a company that's been around for a year or so. But it's a known fact that strong brands operate more efficiently and usually deliver more revenue. Even with this advantage, though, the shelf life of strong brands can waver. This online space has shifted priorities and conveniences of customers, so it's important to pay attention to them, your employees, and the marketplace. The key is in staying relevant, fresh, and engaging. Let's look at a few reasons why it may be time to rebrand. 1. Your name doesn't align with your brand vision. You may have had a great name when you started, but if your name no longer represents who and what your brand is, there's a problem. I always talk about having a naming document and going through the process of finding a brand name that aligns with your vision, mission, purpose, and your values, your core. In fact, did you know that Google's original name was Backrub? Yes, Backrub. Can you imagine going onto the internet and going to the search engine that says Backrub? Crazy, right? Some people don't realize how important a strong brand name is. It's the actual foundation of your story, and it's the first thing people see and remember. That means it should be memorable, unique, and different. Now, going through the renaming process can be hard. Well, it is hard, but it's totally worth it when you have a name that your audience connects with, that is meaningful and directly aligns with your purpose and core. 2, you can't stand out from your competitors. When you start looking like everyone else, it's time to refresh or rebrand. You should be able to identify what makes your brand different and your competitive advantage. And if you can't identify those, it's definitely time for a rebrand. 3, your messaging doesn't align. If your messaging doesn't align with your original core, it's time to review and rebrand to get things back in order. Now, this may be a partial change, but reworking your brand message is key to keeping your audience engaged. 4, your brand may be complicated or confusing. If your brand is all over the place with no focus, you won't be effective. This may make you start copying what someone else is doing, and you definitely don't want to do that. Customers should be able to easily understand your brand and what you do. And if you don't have focus and are confused, it's time to rebrand because there's no synergy. 5, your business model is different. We know things change, especially in this digital space, but when things drastically change and you're going in a different direction, you need to rebrand to align with your new focus. That means finding your purpose, vision, mission, and values. And that's the starting point you can always go back to. Square recently changed their name to Block because they've now expanded their portfolio and also focus on blockchain tech. So think about that. They went from Square to Block because their business model is different and expanding. 6, you've outgrown the brand. Now, this is something to think about because it's not necessarily a bad thing. It's just different. Some companies rebrand to make room for that new growth. Facebook changing to Meta is a great example. You're growing, but you're also bringing along all the good stuff from the old brand. 7, you're merging with another company. When two brands merge, it's definitely time for a rebrand because each brand has their own architecture and you want to make sure everything aligns. 8, you need to shift negative perceptions. If you have a negative image in the marketplace, rebranding is a must because customers will not trust you anymore. And Kentucky Fried Chicken is a very good example of that. They changed their name to KFC because they were getting too much backlash on the trans fats issue. But this was a simple yet effective solution and move for them. 9. You want to connect with different audiences. If you are trying to connect with a new audience, you may want to rebrand to align with those new audiences. In this digital space, social shifts are real. And if your brand is outdated, it's definitely time. 10. It's difficult to increase your prices. If you have an issue raising your prices, that means customers perceive your value as one thing. In order to redefine that value, you may have to rebrand your products and services to bring them back into the fold. And that may be a rebrand or just a simple refresh so that they can think of your firm or your business or your products and services as something that has higher value than what they originally anticipated and knew your company for. 11, you cannot get good job candidates. And this is important because if your brand doesn't stand out, the best talent won't come knocking. And when this happens, it's time to research and find out why they don't connect with your brand and see it as a high value brand that they want to be connected to. Now, rebranding doesn't necessarily mean changing the entire name or changing your name at all. But Dunkin' Donuts, they've now rebranded to Dunkin'. You can easily do a refresh of your logo and other elements, and that's also called a rebrand somewhat. Rebranding can be strategically smart if you do it right. So if you decide to rebrand, I want you to consider this. How much of a change will your rebrand entail? You have to know how much your audience will go for. Some companies change small elements, which may go over well, and others completely overhaul the name and the identity or their look and feel, but the products are the same. This may work because customers continue receiving the same value they're used to, but for some brands, any change causes chaos in the marketplace. Communicate, communicate, communicate. You must have a solid communications plan in place to keep the trust of your customers. You should also have a story that explains why you're rebranding and communicate that across every channel. Your customers need to know that your value will not change, but it will actually increase. Reconsider your domain. Aligning your domain name with the new brand keeps consistency, which is important, but make sure it's descriptive, memorable, and most of all, short. Companies have now started adding keywords to the left and right of the dot, so your audience will know who you are and what you do, and that helps them remember your brand name better. So we're going through all these different steps of when you should rebrand, why you should rebrand, how to rebrand, but are there times when you shouldn't rebrand? Absolutely. You don't want to rebrand just because you saw your competitor do it. Their journey is not your journey. You should have on blinders. And you also don't want to rebrand because you're bored. Rebrands should be based on key factors, even with the refresh. Make sure it's strategic and well thought. Now, if you have a new leader or new board members, they may want to make significant changes to leave their mark, and the answer is no. If there's no strong strategic reason for this, don't do it. And finally, if your sales are dropping, some companies may feel like they need to rebrand, but that's a little bit impulsive. It's time to do the research to find out what's going on. It could be something as simple as introducing a new product or changing your messaging to fix it. Remember, rebranding is not as easy as you think. It takes time, energy, and strategy to pull off a successful rebrand. Go follow me on Instagram at The Right Mix and color my brands, and let me know what you think about the podcast because I love hearing from you. Sign up for my weekly Brand Bits newsletter at bit.ly/getbrandbits, dropping every Tuesday. And of course, we're on every single week. Have an amazing day. Until next time.